There is a light in the deep Atlantic tonight. It drifts through water that has not seen the sun in more than 10,000 years. It pulses with a pale blue-green glow, no larger than a grain of rice. There is nothing around it for several hundred feet in any direction. No warmth, no color, no surface shimmer. Just this one small trembling point of light, and the water pressing in from every side with a weight that would collapse most human structures instantly. A weight that would compress a steel hull as if it were dry paper. A weight that would end a human body before the body had time to understand what was happening to it. The light belongs to something alive, not a creature that found this place and adapted to endure it. A creature that was born here and has never known anything else. Its entire body was shaped by this darkness over millions of years of cold and pressure and absolute silence. From the hinged jaws that open wider than the skull they are attached to the glowing rod that extends from the forehead like an offered lantern. For this creature, the void is not a hardship. It is the world, the only world that has ever been. Tonight we go to the place where the sun cannot reach, the midnight zone of the ocean and the depths below it, the zone where evolution produced creatures so strange they seem like errors, where the ocean abandoned the rules it follows near the surface and rewrote them entirely, where life continues without the one resource that almost every other living thing on Earth considers essential. Light. This is the world of the anglerfish and the hunters of the lightless deep. We tend to picture these depths as a cold and featureless void, a place where nothing meaningful lives or moves, a place that is simply the underside of the ocean, dark and still and empty. That picture is wrong in almost every detail. The midnight zone is full of creatures that manufacture their own illumination. It is full of predators, with bodies shaped by forces we have never felt, and hungers solved by methods that daylight life has never needed. It is not a barren space. It is a living one, dense with adaptation and appetite, and biology we are still entirely failing to understand. We have explored less of the deep ocean than we have explored the surface of the moon. The creatures living in the midnight zone have been surviving and evolving and hunting for longer than our species has existed. Most of what lives below the reach of sunlight remains, in the great majority of its details, genuinely unknown. We are, by any honest measure, still at the very edge of knowing what the dark holds. If you find this slow, quiet exploration of mystery something you genuinely enjoy, I'd be grateful if you'd like the video and subscribe. Letting me know in the comments where you're listening from and what time it is for you is always a quiet comfort. Now find your comfortable position, dim the lights, take a slow breath. We are leaving the map behind. The light begins to fail at the surface, not all at once. The ocean is not divided into cleanly lit and unlit halves. It is a gradient, a slow withdrawal of one frequency, and then another as you descend. And experiencing it from within is among the most complete sensory transitions in nature. Red light is the first to go. It is absorbed by water almost immediately. Within 10 meters of depth, the red frequencies vanish from the spectrum of available light. If you were cut at 10 meters below the surface, your blood would appear green. Not because anything about it has changed, but because the wavelength of light that makes blood look red no longer exists in the water around you. The color has ceased to travel this far. Orange goes next, then yellow. By 30 meters, the world above you is blue. A specific, saturating, pressing blue. It is beautiful in photographs taken from above. Experienced at depth, it is different. It is the color of a world that is removing its light from you, frequency by frequency, with patient and total thoroughness. By 200 meters, even that blue has thinned to a blue-gray so faint it barely functions as light at all. This is the edge of the sunlit zone, the epipelagic. 200 meters is the theoretical maximum depth that sunlight penetrates on the clearest possible day, in the clearest possible ocean. Below it, light from the surface ceases to exist as a meaningful biological force. Below 200 meters is the twilight zone, the mesopelagic. It stretches from 200 to approximately 1,000 meters. The name is generous. It implies that some light persists, and technically, in the upper portion of this zone, something does filter down on clear days in clear water, something so faint that only creatures with extraordinarily sensitive eyes can detect it. By 500 meters, for any practical biological purpose, even that residue is gone. The creatures of the mesopelagic have adapted to this failing light with remarkable ingenuity. Many perform a daily vertical migration, rising toward the surface at dusk to feed and descending back into the darker water at dawn. They follow the light down and the dark up. They spend their daylight hours at depths where the pressure would kill us, safe from predators that hunt by sight in the upper water, then rise at night to graze on the surface's abundance. Below 1,000 meters is the midnight zone, the barthipelagic. The name is accurate. At this depth, there is no sunlight at all. The darkness is not like the darkness of a room with the lights off. It is a darkness that has existed without interruption since this water last circulated through the upper ocean, which may have been centuries ago. The sun has never once reached this water. It will not. This is where the hunters live. And because sunlight is absent, the light in this world is made by the creatures themselves, made from within their own bodies, using chemistry rather than the star that powers almost everything else alive. Segment 3. What we imagine. We assumed the deep was dead. It is a reasonable assumption if you think about it only briefly. No sunlight means no photosynthesis. No photosynthesis means no plant life. No plant life means nothing to eat. Nothing to eat means nothing living there. The logic is clean. The conclusion is wrong. The deep ocean is not sterile. It is not empty. It is not a biological desert between the useful parts of the ocean. The midnight zone is one of the most species-rich environments on the planet, measured in the diversity of organisms adapted to live there. The mesopelagic zone alone is estimated to contain more biomass of fish than all the world's commercial fisheries combined. Some estimates range as high as 1 billion tons of fish living in a zone that most humans, if asked, would describe as largely empty. What the deep contains is not the same life as the sunlit ocean. It is different life entirely. Life shaped by different pressures and different chemistry and different rules. The creatures of the midnight zone eat each other. They eat the marine snow, the slow and continuous drift of organic material from above, dead cells and fecal matter, and discarded shells and the bodies of surface creatures that died and began their long fall toward the floor. This snow falls constantly, silently, like particulate matter through still air. It is the primary subsidy from the lit world to the dark one. Everything in the midnight zone is powered by the sun in some indirect sense, even though no sunlight has ever reached it directly. The sun feeds the surface. The surface dies and falls. The dark eats the falling. Some creatures in the deep eat bacteria that in turn eat the mineral seeps and hydrothermal emissions of the seafloor itself. The food web of the deep ocean is real and ancient and far more complex than its apparent emptiness suggests to anyone looking down from above. The assumption of emptiness is a bias of position. We stand at the surface and look down and see nothing, and we conclude that nothing is there. What is actually there is a world that cannot look back up at us and cannot announce what it contains. We mistook silence for absence. We mistook depth for void. The deep has never been empty. We were simply unable to see far enough into it to know what it held. And in the absence of knowledge, we assumed the simplest thing, which was nothing. We picture the ocean as a horizontal world, a skin of blue we cross in ships and look down into. The real ocean is vertical. The greatest portion of its living volume is in the dark. The midnight zone does not know it is being underestimated. It has been going about the business of being alive for hundreds of millions of years, long before any creature at the surface developed the capacity to form assumptions about it. The assumption of emptiness is ours. The fact of fullness belongs to the deep. Consider what it means to live at 1,000 meters below the surface. The pressure at that depth is approximately 100 times the pressure of the atmosphere at sea level. 100 atmospheres pressing inward on every surface of a body from all directions simultaneously, with equal and unrelenting force. We say this number, and it passes through us without producing the sensation it should. Numbers rarely do, so think of it another way. At sea level, the atmosphere presses down on us at roughly 14 pounds per square inch. That is our baseline. That is what we are built for. We do not feel it because we evolved inside it. At 1,000 meters below the ocean surface, the pressure is over 1,400 pounds per square inch from all sides at once. There is no orientation that reduces it. When research submersibles descend with styrofoam cups attached to their exteriors, those cups arrive at depth compressed to the size of thimbles. The air pockets that give styrofoam its volume are abolished. What remains is solid and dense and unchanged in composition, but reduced to a fraction of its original size. This is what pressure does to compressible objects. A human body at these depths would not be crushed in the dramatic way the word implies. The compression is more complete and faster than that. Every airspace in the body collapses simultaneously. The lungs, the sinuses, the intestines, the inner ear chambers. The process is total. There is no version of it in which the person survives. The creatures of the midnight zone carry no air spaces. Their tissues are adapted to the pressure because they were formed within it, over millions of generations, by selection pressure that had no tolerance for designs that failed. Many species have specific molecules in their cells that counteract the crushing effect of pressure on proteins. A class of compounds called piezolites accumulates in their tissues in direct proportion to the depth at which the animal lives. A species from 2,000 meters will carry more piezolites than one from 1,000 meters. The concentration is a chemical index of where in the dark the animal lives and how long its lineage has lived there. Others have bodies so soft and gelatinous, so open in their internal structure that there is nothing for the pressure to compress. Their solution is not to resist the environment, but to become continuous with it, to be, structurally, as much like the water as a solid body can be. And it is cold. Throughout most of the midnight zone, the temperature holds just above 4 degrees Celsius. Just above freezing, a cold so consistent and ancient it makes the surface ocean seem volatile. The midnight zone does not change. It is cold and dark and under pressure, and it has been this way for longer than our species has existed. The creatures adapted to it have adapted not just to hardship, but to permanence without variation. To a world that does not surprise, the dark makes its own light. This is the central fact of the midnight zone, and it is the one that most completely overturns what we expected to find when we finally began to explore it. We assumed the deep was dark, in the way a sealed room is dark, uniformly, completely, without exception. But the midnight zone is not uniformly dark. It is full of light, cold light, biological light, light produced by living cells through chemical reaction rather than heat, bioluminescence. The estimate most researchers agree on is striking. Approximately 76% of all deep-sea creatures are capable of producing light. More than 3/4 of everything living in the midnight zone glows. This is not a curiosity. It is the dominant strategy of survival in a lightless environment. Without the sun, organisms that needed to communicate and hunt and hide and find mates developed their own illumination. They did not merely adapt to the dark, they lit it themselves. Bioluminescence works through a chemical reaction involving a compound called luciferin, which reacts with oxygen in the presence of an enzyme called luciferase. The reaction produces light and almost no heat. Different species have evolved different chemical variants of this reaction, producing light in different colors and intensities and patterns. Blue-green is most common, because those wavelengths travel furthest through water. Not all bioluminescence in the deep is produced by the animals themselves. In many species, the light comes from colonies of bioluminescent bacteria that the animal hosts in dedicated light organs. The anglerfish's esker contains such a colony. The relationship is symbiotic. The bacteria have a protected environment with reliable access to nutrients, and the anglerfish has a light source it does not need to manufacture from scratch. This kind of bacterial partnership has evolved independently many times in the deep ocean, producing different light colors and patterns depending on the specific bacterial strain involved. The light is used in ways as varied as the creatures that produce it. Some use it as a lure, advertising themselves as food to draw prey within reach. Some use it as a weapon, releasing a burst of luminescent fluid to confuse a predator and disappear behind the cloud. Some use it for counter-illumination, producing light from their undersides to match the faint ambient glow from above, erasing their own silhouette for predators watching from below. And some use it to speak, to say, in the only language available in total darkness, I am here, I am alive, I am of your kind, I am ready. In the midnight zone, light is not the property of the sun. It is the property of the living. The creatures down here did not inherit it from above. They built it themselves, chemistry by chemistry and generation by generation, in a darkness that had given them no other option. Begin with a rod. From the top of the skull, where other fish have a dorsal fin, the female anglerfish has a single modified spine, one long extension of bone and tissue that grows forward over the head and ends at its tip in a small bulb of flesh. That bulb is called the esker. Inside it live colonies of bioluminescent bacteria. The bacteria produce light continuously. The anglerfish cannot turn them off. The esker glows whether she is hunting or resting, or attempting to avoid a larger predator, which means she is permanently visible in a world where visibility is often the difference between eating and being eaten. But the risk is calculated into the design. The lure is an investment. It costs light. It returns meals. The relationship between the anglerfish and the bacteria in her esker is one of the stranger partnerships in the ocean. The bacteria do not live freely in the water. They are found only inside anglerfish light organs. The anglerfish does not inherit the bacteria from her mother. Each generation of females must acquire a new bacterial colony, and exactly how they do this is still not fully established. The bacteria arrive somehow, establish themselves in the esker, and begin to glow. Whether they are drawn by chemical signals from the developing esker, or whether the larval anglerfish actively takes them up from the surrounding water during a specific window of development, researchers are still working out. What is clear is that once established, the colony persists for the life of the fish. The anglerfish feeds the bacteria oxygen and nutrients from her own blood. The bacteria produce light. Neither can do without the other. The rod itself, the elytium, varies dramatically between the more than 230 species of ceratioid anglerfish. Some have short, stiff elytra, barely extending beyond the snout. Others have long, flexible structures that can be waved and swayed in the water, creating a convincing imitation of a small creature drifting on a current. Some species have evolved elaborate shapes at the tip of the esker, filaments, frills, branching appendages that in the dark might resemble a small crustacean or a fragment of food worth investigating. The prey approaches. It approaches because the light is the only interesting thing in the darkness. In a world with no other illumination, a glowing object represents either food or potential danger, and the creatures of the Midnight Zone have generally evolved to risk the latter for the former. Food is too rare to pass by on the chance that something with a light attached to it might also have jaws. The anglerfish does not move toward the prey. She waits. She is patient in the way that only creatures with very slow metabolisms and very infrequent access to food can be patient. The prey enters the radius of the jaws. The mouth opens with a speed that generates suction, powerful enough to draw the prey inward before it can change direction. It is inside the stomach before it understands what the light was. The esker pulses on in the dark. The anglerfish waits again. Its body is an argument made in flesh. Every part of it says, this is a place where meals are rare and must be taken at any cost, in any configuration, of any size. The jaws are out of proportion to everything else about the animal. In some species, they account for nearly half the total body length. They open wide enough to accommodate prey larger than the head itself, which is possible because the skull bones are loosely articulated, able to flex at multiple points rather than forming a rigid cage. The teeth face inward. This is not incidental. A prey item that enters the mouth and attempts to reverse out will find that the natural direction of each tooth drives it deeper into tissue with every movement toward escape. The teeth are designed not to kill, but to hold. The killing comes from the compression of the stomach and the eventual absence of oxygen. The stomach can expand to a remarkable degree. Some species have been documented with prey inside them, weighing more than the anglerfish itself weighed before the meal. The stomach wall is elastic, and the surrounding organs are loosely packed within the body cavity, allowing the entire torso to distend around the contents. A fully fed anglerfish of certain species becomes nearly spherical. Most serratioid anglerfish are small. The majority of species are no larger than a tennis ball at full maturity. A few grow to over a foot in length. The size distribution reflects the energy economics of the midnight zone. Everything here is scaled down because there is less energy available to sustain large bodies. The anglerfish is as large as the environment can afford to make it, which is not large. But size in the midnight zone is not what determines whether you eat. The skin is dark. In most serratioid species, it is nearly black, absorbing light rather than reflecting it. This removes the body from visibility, while the lure performs its function ahead of it. The anglerfish is simultaneously the most visible creature in its immediate environment because of the lure, and the most invisible because of everything attached to the lure. The body disappears. The light remains. Beyond the basic serratioid architecture, there is extraordinary variation. Different species have evolved different lure shapes and elysium lengths, different body proportions, different depths of preference. The whip-nose anglerfish has an elysium so long it extends several body lengths ahead of the fish. The hairy frogfish, a shallow water relative, has a lure that mimics a small worm in striking detail. Some species produce light of different colors, depending on the specific bacterial colony they host. Each species is a particular solution to the problem of hunting in the dark, and the range of solutions is wider than the category label suggests. The escae can range in color from blue-green to white to red, depending on species. Each is a signature. In the dark, where identity is constructed entirely from light, a signature matters more than almost anything else. A male anglerfish is a different creature entirely. He is tiny. In some species, the male is less than 1 centimeter long at maturity, while the female of the same species grows to 20 or 30 times that size. He has no lure. He has no enormous jaws, no stomach adapted to expand around large prey. He has very large eyes for his size and a highly developed sense of smell. He has one purpose written into his biology from birth, and it has nothing to do with feeding himself for any extended period. The male anglerfish hatches and spends his early life as a free-swimming larva in the water column. He eats during this phase, building energy reserves, but his digestive system is already beginning to deteriorate. He has been built for one journey and one event. The machinery required to sustain him beyond that event was never fully installed, because it was never going to be needed. He finds a female by following chemical signals in the water. She releases pheromones that disperse through the darkness in a gradient of concentration. He follows the gradient uphill, toward higher concentration, toward the source. In a world with no light and no visual landmarks, this is navigation at its most reduced. A smell and the direction it comes from. The olfactory centers of the male anglerfish brain are extraordinarily developed. occupying a disproportionate share of its total brain volume. Measured against body size, the male's nose is among the most sensitive in the animal kingdom. He was built by evolution to smell the female from far away. In the midnight zone, where distances between individuals of the same species may be measured in hundreds of meters of dark water, far away is the only way that works. When he finds her, he bites into her side. His lips fuse to her skin. His circulatory system connects to hers. His immune system, which would normally identify and reject foreign tissue, abandons the distinction between self and other. Over days and weeks, the fusion becomes permanent. His eyes degenerate. His fins atrophy. His internal organs dissolve as her blood supply provides everything his remaining tissues need. What persists is a small mass attached to her abdomen, connected to her bloodstream, producing the one thing that justifies his continued existence. A female anglerfish can carry several males at once, each fused to a different location on her body. She does not choose which males to keep. She keeps whichever ones found her, and bit and successfully fused. The selection was made by the capacity to navigate the dark to her specific location. In the midnight zone, where finding another member of your species may be a once-in-a-lifetime event, evolution found a solution that is extreme and total. The volumes of dark water between individuals are immense. The male does not lose his individuality because he failed. He loses it because the design of the species requires it. He was built to become part of a larger survival, and, in his own terms, he succeeds completely. Bioluminescence in the midnight zone is not one thing. It is a vocabulary, a grammar, a set of strategies, each shaped by a different set of pressures and different predators and different opportunities. The anglerfish's lure is among the most familiar uses, but it is far from the only one. The light of the deep ocean does many different things, and the creatures that produce it have evolved to use it in ways that still produce genuine surprise in researchers who have spent careers studying exactly this subject. Anomalops catoptron, the flashlight fish, has a light organ beneath each eye. It can expose and conceal the organ rapidly, producing a strobe effect in the water around it. Experiments conducted in darkness showed that other flashlight fish oriented toward and moved toward these flashing signals. The light functions as social communication, as species identification, as a signal of presence in a world that has no other medium for it. The pattern of the flash, its frequency and duration, carries information the way the pattern of a song carries information. Two species might produce identical wavelengths of light, but different timing patterns, and the difference is enough for each species to recognize its own. The counter-illumination strategy is among the most elegant adaptations in the ocean. Many creatures in the mesopelagic zone produce light from organs on their undersides. The light they produce matches in intensity and color the faint down-welling light from above. From below looking up, a predator does not see the silhouette of a potential meal against a lighter background. It sees an even field of dim light. The animal becomes invisible by producing the background it would otherwise interrupt. It disappears by becoming exactly as bright as everything around it. The vampire squid, Vampiroteuthis infernalis, is a filter feeder of patient habits. When threatened, it ejects a cloud of bioluminescent mucus. The cloud glows in the dark. The predator attends to the glow. The vampire squid retreats into its dark cloak and disappears. Watersenia scintillans, the firefly squid, have photoreceptors sensitive to 3 different wavelengths of light. This gives them color vision in an environment that most creatures perceive in shades of blue. They use their bioluminescent displays to communicate with each other, with different patterns, signaling different states, when they gather in enormous numbers to spawn in the shallow waters of Toyama Bay in Japan. The bay itself glows. The light of millions of small creatures making meaning in the dark is visible from shore. And then there are the signals between potential mates in the midnight zone itself. The precise patterns of light production serve as species recognition in an environment where hundreds of bioluminescent species share the same dark water. The signals are specific and consistent, and from the perspective of the creature reading them, unmistakable. In the dark, a signal means everything. It is the only way to say, I am here, and I am yours. The midnight zone speaks in light. The light is not simple. It is the accumulated communication of an environment that had to build its own language from nothing. There is a fish in the midnight zone, hunting with light that no one else can see. Malacosteus niger, the loose-jaw dragonfish, is not a large animal. It has the elongated body and hinged jaw of many deep-sea dragonfish. It is not, at first encounter, remarkable in its appearance. But beneath each eye, it carries a light organ that produces something almost no other bioluminescent deep-sea creature produces. Red light. Red light does not penetrate deep water. Red wavelengths are absorbed near the surface, gone within 10 meters on a clear day. At the depths where Malacosteus niger lives, in the bathypelagic zone, red light as a naturally occurring phenomenon simply does not exist. No food source glows red. No threat displays use red. Most deep-sea creatures have evolved eyes, sensitive only to blue and green wavelengths, because those are the only wavelengths present in any significant quantity. For almost every animal sharing the water with Malacosteus niger, red light is as invisible as a color that simply does not exist. Malacosteus niger can see it. This fish has evolved a visual pigment that detects red wavelengths. How this pigment evolved is a matter of active investigation. The current best understanding is that the pigment is derived from a molecule borrowed from photosynthetic bacteria, a bacterial chlorophyll repurposed to detect the wavelength of light the fish itself produces. The evolutionary path that arrived at this arrangement is not fully established. What is clear is that the outcome is remarkable. When Malacosteus niger activates its red light organ and sweeps the water around it, it illuminates its prey in a color that the prey has no ability to detect. The prey has no red sensitive photoreceptors. To it, the beam does not exist. The prey moves through the red light completely unaware of being illuminated. It does not behave differently. It does not flee. It continues whatever it was doing before the light reached it, which is often moving in the direction of the hunter. Other dragonfish species produce additional colors of bioluminescence beyond the standard blue-green. Some produce yellow bioluminescence in their photophores, the small light-producing organs arranged in rows along their bodies. The photophores of different species have different patterns, and these patterns are used for species recognition in the dark. The same function a face or a song performs in the world above. In the midnight zone, your pattern of light is your identity. The closest analogy for the dragonfish's red hunting beam is a hunter equipped with a light source and goggles. visible only to the hunter. The advantage is complete. The prey does not know it is illuminated. It does not know it is being seen. It moves through the beam unaware. The dark makes its own light, and sometimes that light is private, readable only by the one creature that produces it, sweeping through the water on a frequency that belongs entirely to the hunter. The barreleye fish carries its eyes inside a transparent dome. Macropinna microstoma is small, pale, and inhabited by something that takes a moment to process when you first encounter a photograph of it. Where the face should be is a bubble of clear fluid, smooth as blown glass, filling the space above the mouth. Through that bubble, the creature's eyes are clearly visible. Two bright green cylindrical structures pointing upward. For decades, based on specimens collected in nets and examined at the surface, researchers assumed those eyes were fixed. That the barreleye spent its entire life looking permanently upward, watching for the silhouettes of prey against the faint surface light, incapable of redirecting its gaze. In 2004, researchers at the Monterey Bay Aquarium Research Institute filmed a living barreleye using a remotely operated vehicle and discovered something the dead specimens had concealed. The eyes can rotate. The dome protects a highly mobile visual apparatus, not a fixed one. The eyes can look forward, look upward, look at angles between the two. The barreleye is not locked into a single direction of attention. It sees in multiple directions by moving the turrets inside their protective fluid housing. The upward-facing position is the hunting mode. The barreleye positions itself below the dim light coming from above and watches for silhouettes. A shrimp passing overhead, caught against the faint blue, is visible to the barreleye from considerable distance below. The fish rises. When close, the eyes rotate forward. The prey disappears. The giant squid has eyes that can reach 30 centimeters across, the largest eyes of any animal alive. They are built for a single purpose: detecting movement in deep dark water, where almost no light exists, and where detecting a slight change in the distribution of that almost absent light might be the difference between avoiding a sperm whale and being consumed by one. Some deep-sea fish have eyes that face in opposite directions, eliminating blind spots in a world where danger can come from any angle without announcement. Some have chemically enhanced retinas that are extraordinarily sensitive to specific wavelengths. Some have essentially abandoned conventional vision, developing instead lateral line systems that detect pressure changes in the water, the bow wave or wake of a body moving nearby. Some have no eyes at all. In the deepest and darkest zones, where even bioluminescence is too faint to see across meaningful distances, some species have simply stopped building visual structures. The metabolic cost of maintaining an eye that detects nothing is not worth paying. The eyes degenerate across generations until they are vestigial. What remains is a creature that navigates entirely through pressure and chemistry and electrical field detection. The midnight zone is not dark in the same way to every creature in it. Each one has built a different way of reading what is there. Consider the architecture of extreme hunger. The gulper eel, Europharynx pelecanoides, solves the problem of unpredictable food by building a jaw that constitutes a significant fraction of its entire body length. The jaw is loosely articulated in a way that allows it to open to an angle structurally impossible in any other fish. When fully extended, The mouth can encompass a volume of water several times larger than the eel's body. The gulper eel does not bite prey. It encompasses it, opening its mouth and swimming forward into whatever is in its path, closing the jaw behind the target like a mobile trap. The tail of the gulper eel carries a bioluminescent organ at its tip, a light that pulses and draws prey toward it. The eel curves its tail forward into the zone in front of its open mouth and lights the lure. What investigates the light moves toward the open jaw. In the midnight zone, every device that works is in use. The black swallower, Chiasmodon niger, approaches the problem from a different angle. It is a small fish, rarely more than 25 centimeters long. Its stomach, however, is not fixed in size. It can expand to accommodate prey significantly larger than the fish itself. The abdomen distends, the skin stretches, the internal organs shift to accommodate the mass within. On more than one occasion, specimens have been recovered at the surface with prey inside them that had decomposed before digestion could keep pace. The gases produced by that decomposition caused the swallower to float upward to the surface, where it was found and collected. Too much, too fast. The one failure mode of a design otherwise built for maximum intake. The viperfish Charliodus sloani has teeth so long relative to its jaw that they extend outside the closed mouth and curve back along the outside of the snout. The viperfish strikes by impaling rather than biting, arresting the prey's momentum with the teeth before drawing it inward. The strike must be precise. In the dark, with no margin for error, and no guarantee of another opportunity soon. Precision is not a preference. It is the baseline requirement. The fangtooth fish, Anoplogaster cornuta, has the largest teeth of any fish, relative to its body size. When the mouth is closed, the teeth slide into sheaths that extend into the skull to accommodate them. There is no way for the mouth to close fully without this arrangement. The jaw evolved around the teeth, not the other way around. These are not monsters. They are solutions. Each design is an answer to the specific and demanding problem of staying alive in an environment where food is genuinely scarce, and any meal might be the last for weeks. The body that can eat anything when the opportunity presents itself in any quantity is the body that survives. Everything in the midnight zone that continues to exist has arrived at some version of this principle, each by a different evolutionary route, each optimized for the specific conditions of its particular depth. For most of human history, we knew the anglerfish only from the dead. Every specimen we possessed had been collected in a trawl net, hauled up from depth. The journey from the midnight zone to the surface is catastrophic for soft tissue. The change in pressure as the fish rises through hundreds of meters of decreasing weight causes tissues that were adapted to extreme compression to expand and rupture. The eschar deflates, the skin loses its tone and shape. The dark pigmentation that made the animal nearly invisible in the deep fades, in ways that suggest it was more than just a color in life. What arrived in the jar was anatomically accurate, but absent of character, of behavior, of the quality that makes an animal something other than a record of its structure. We knew the bones, we knew the arrangement of the teeth, and the position of the ilicium, and the approximate volume of the stomach. We did not know the creature. The first footage of a living serratioid anglerfish in its natural environment was captured in 2016 by a remotely operated vehicle operating off the coast of Portugal at approximately 800 meters depth. The team was affiliated with the Rebekov-Niggeler Foundation. They were not specifically searching for anglerfish. They found one in the beam of their lights. The species was Melanocetus johnsoni, the humpback black devil. The footage ran for several minutes. It showed something the preserved specimens had not suggested. The animal moved with an ease and deliberateness that the word grace is not inaccurate to describe. Not the rigid posture of a dead specimen or the convulsive movement of a creature brought into wrong conditions. Genuine, fluid, deliberate movement through a space that was clearly its own. The lure pulsed steadily. The jaws were slightly opened and relaxed. The body was dark against the darker water, visible mainly in the vehicle's lights, and completely indifferent to them. The creature did not flee. It continued about whatever it had been doing before the lights arrived. Hunting, perhaps. Drifting. Waiting. The footage did not make clear which, and perhaps did not need to, because in the midnight zone, those activities are not always distinct from one another. The researchers described in their documentation of the encounter a feeling they had not anticipated. Not the triumph of discovery, something closer to the feeling of having walked into a room that was already occupied, of having arrived in a space that was not waiting to be found. The anglerfish had been going about its life in the dark for an uninterrupted stretch of time that ended briefly when the vehicle arrived with its lights. It would continue, equally uninterrupted, after the vehicle moved on, which it did. The lights retreated, the dark returned, and the anglerfish presumably resumed whatever it was doing before we arrived. There is an animal in the midnight zone that can reach 45 meters in length. 45 meters. Longer than the wingspan of a large commercial aircraft. Longer than many research vessels. The longest animal known to exist on Earth. Most people have never heard of it. Praia dubia is a siphonophore, and that word requires care. A siphonophore is not a single organism in the way a fish or a whale is a single organism. It is a colony of individual organisms, each called a zooid, each adapted to perform one and only one specific function for the collective. Some zooids provide propulsion, contracting in rhythmic coordination to move the colony through the water. Some are responsible for capturing prey. Some digest what the others capture. Some carry the reproductive structures. Together they form what appears from the outside to be a single creature, but is in fact hundreds of distinct individuals, arrayed along a common stem. Each zooid is genuinely individual. Each began as a separate animal. Each has its own specialized cellular structure. A propulsion zooid looks nothing like a feeding zooid, which looks nothing like a reproductive zooid. They share DNA. They share a circulatory system along the colony's central stem. But they are not the same kind of thing, any more than a heart is the same kind of thing as a lung. No zooid can survive separated from the colony. Each is too specialized for the one function it performs to carry out any of the others. The colony is the individual. The individual is, in some philosophical sense, a category that does not quite apply. Praia dubia drifts through the midnight zone trailing its tentacles. The tentacles carry stinging cells identical in mechanism to those of jellyfish. Anything that makes contact with those tentacles is stung and immobilized before it understands what has happened. The feeding zooids then absorb the nutrients from whatever the tentacles have caught. The siphonophore does not pursue prey. It does not need to. It moves slowly, and its tentacles spread across a volume of space proportional to its length, and the prey moves into it. In the midnight zone, where most creatures are small, and every layer of the water column is occupied, the odds of something touching a 45-meter arrangement of stinging tentacles are considerable. The siphonophore is patient in the way that only something without a single centralized nervous system can be patient. It does not experience the weight. It simply exists. We know Praia Dubia exists because remotely operated vehicles have filmed it in the waters off California and elsewhere. Even in footage, the full length of the animal is difficult to hold in the mind. The camera captures a section, and the rest extends beyond the frame in both directions. It is one of those creatures that forces a recalibration of what the word animal is able to mean. In 2019, a study examining the gut contents of amphipods collected from the Mariana Trench found something that was not expected. Microplastics, small fragments of synthetic polymer, each smaller than a grain of rice, in the digestive systems of creatures living at nearly 11,000 meters depth. These amphipods have never been anywhere else. They evolved in total isolation from the surface world over millions of years. They were consuming material that had been produced at the surface and had drifted over years or decades through the water column and down to the floor of the deepest ocean on Earth. They had no means of avoiding it. It arrived where they lived, mixed into the marine snow they depend on, indistinguishable from food until it reached their digestive systems. A plastic shopping bag was also recovered from the Mariana Trench, in sufficient condition to be identified as to type. The kind sold in supermarkets in large quantities and used once and discarded. It had travelled on surface currents and then on gravity to the deepest point on the planet. That object had outlasted the attention span of everyone who touched it before it arrived there. These objects did not arrive in the midnight zone by accident. They arrived because the deep ocean, for most of human history, was understood as a void, an absence, a place so remote it had no reality for the people dropping material into it from above. The ocean was assumed to absorb everything and hold nothing. The depth was taken as evidence of immunity to consequences. Ships dumped waste at sea, and the ocean closed over it, and it was gone. Industrial waste and sewage, munitions from 2 world wars, low-level radioactive material in sealed containers, not sealed against corrosion, and the passage of decades. All of it assumed to be absorbed and neutralized by the sheer volume of water it disappeared into. The assumption was never examined because there was no economic reason to examine it. The deep was out of sight. The creatures living in it did not appear in any inventory of things, withstanding to matter. They were not understood as things that could be harmed. They were part of the dark, which was assumed to be essentially inert. The microplastics in the amphipods tell a different story. The deep is not a void. It is a place. The things we put into it do not disappear. They drift downward and settle and eventually enter the bodies of creatures that have no relation to us and no means of refusing what we have sent to them. The deep keeps its secrets, but it also keeps ours, and it holds them in ways we never intended and cannot now retrieve. On the floor of the Pacific Ocean, at depths of 4 to 6 kilometers, there are fields of polymetallic nodules. They are roughly the size and shape of potatoes. They contain manganese and cobalt and nickel and copper and rare earth elements in concentrations that have attracted the attention of major mining companies and national governments. The demand for these elements has grown sharply because they are essential components of batteries and the infrastructure of renewable energy. The clean energy transition has a mineral requirement, and the seabed is full of the minerals in question. The nodules take millions of years to form. They accrete around a nucleus, grain by grain, at a rate of a few millimeters per million years. A nodule the size of a closed fist may have been forming since before the first anatomically modern humans walked on the surface of the Earth. They are among the slowest growing formations we know of in the natural world. They are also, it has emerged, habitat. The communities that established themselves around and beneath nodule fields in the Clarion-Clipperton zone of the Pacific were first studied in detail in the 1970s. They contain species that exist nowhere else. Organisms adapted to the specific chemical and physical conditions the nodule fields provide. The biology of these communities is still being documented. New species are found on most expeditions to study them. The ecosystems are not mapped in any complete sense. One study found that within nodule fields, the abundance and diversity of life was significantly higher than in nearby stretches of bare seafloor. The nodules themselves are covered with organisms, bacteria and foraminifera, sponges and polychaeta worms, sea cucumbers and amphipods. The nodule is not a rock to be removed. It is a structure that a community has built itself around over thousands of years. The proposed method for mining these fields involves traversing the seafloor with mechanical collectors that vacuum up nodules along with the top layer of sediment, pumping the material to a surface vessel and returning the sediment in a plume that settles across a wide area. The ecosystems in the direct collection path are destroyed. The plume affects areas well beyond the collection zone, settling a layer of fine sediment over organisms that require clear water to feed. Recovery of deep-sea ecosystems from large-scale disturbance is measured in centuries, not years, centuries. A study of the Discal experiment, in which a stretch of seafloor in the Peru Basin was disturbed in 1989, found that 26 years later, the community had not recovered. The biological indicators used to assess ecosystem health remain significantly lower than in undisturbed areas. We do not fully know what lives in those fields. We are already negotiating the terms under which we would be permitted to remove it. The deepest known anglerfish was found at more than 5,000 meters below the surface. 5,000 meters. 5 kilometers of water pressing down. The pressure at that depth is over 500 times what we experience at sea level. The temperature is just above 4 degrees Celsius, just above freezing. The darkness is total and has been for as long as this water has been at this depth, which is measured not in years but in centuries of deep ocean circulation. There is no current of consequence, no seasonal variation, no day, no night, only the slow and patient permanence of geological time. In that environment, a pale blue-green light pulses. The anglerfish does not know it is deep. It does not know it is in the dark. It does not know about the sun or the surface world, or any of the concepts we use to describe its situation from above. It knows the cold because the cold is all there is. It knows the pressure as the baseline condition of its body, as normal as gravity is to the body. of anything living at sea level. It carries its light with it everywhere it goes, a small glow in the water, as unremarkable to it as breathing is to us. Consider what that means for a moment, a creature that has never known warmth, never known color, never known the energy source that powers almost every other living thing on this planet. Not a creature that has lost these things, not a creature in deprivation, a creature that was never built to have them. The absence is not experienced as absence. The dark is not a deprivation to the anglerfish. It is the only condition life has ever taken. There is something in that image worth holding still for. A creature that evolved not to find the light, but to become it. Not to seek warmth, but to generate it in cold. Not to navigate toward better conditions, but to thrive completely inside conditions that no surface creature was built to enter and survive. And not merely to survive there, to hunt there, to reproduce there, to build over millions of generations a body precisely suited to a world that offers, from the outside, nothing. The goo darkness shaped it the way water shapes rock, slowly, without negotiation, and without the stone's permission. The lure is not a miracle, it is a solution, cold and glowing and patient and effective. The only solution that worked. The dark makes its own light, it always has. Long before we knew the dark existed in the form it takes at these depths, long before we had instruments to measure its pressure or its cold, the light was already there, pulsing, patient, waiting for something to come close. Something always does. At this depth, there are other creatures alongside the anglerfish. The abyssal zone does not belong only to the hunters we have been naming. It belongs to sea cucumbers that outnumber almost every other animal on the seafloor, drifting over the silt and eating the thin layer of organic material that settles there. It belongs to polycate worms that have colonized every depth the ocean reaches, adapting their chemistry and their behavior to conditions that would kill their shallower relatives instantly. It belongs to foraminifera, single-celled organisms with intricate mineral shells, some of which have existed in forms nearly identical to their current ones for hundreds of millions of years. The anglerfish is the one we can see and name and understand in something like its full complexity. It is surrounded by a multitude of creatures we have barely begun to catalogue. The deep keeps what it makes. Every creature down there is a solution to the same fundamental problem of existence, solved differently at different temperatures and depths and pressures. Across an expanse of geological time so large, it resists direct comprehension. The anglerfish with its light is one answer. The sea cucumber with its patient mouth is another. The foraminifera in its mineral shell is a third. All of them are here tonight. All of them will be here tomorrow. All of them were here before we were. We began tonight with a light in the deep Atlantic. Small, pale, pulsing. We know more about it now. We know it belongs to a creature that has never seen the sun, that carries its own illumination as both weapon and invitation, that fuses its mates permanently to its body and waits in cold darkness for something to mistake a light for food. We know it lives in a world of hunters shaped by pressures we cannot survive, in a world of creatures that manufacture red light only they can see, in a world that includes animals 45 meters long, drifting on currents we have barely begun to map. We know more, and knowing more has not reduced what remains unknown. It has only sharpened the outline of how much that is. The Midnight Zone has been doing this for hundreds of millions of years. Long before there were eyes to see it, the deep was full of cold light. Creatures glowing at each other in water the sun had never touched. Living and dying and evolving under pressures, we are still learning to measure accurately. Building ecosystems, we cannot map in any complete sense. Following rules, we are only at the beginning of understanding. We go down sometimes. We send machines into the dark with their lights and cameras. We film for a few hours. We collect samples. We surface and study what we brought back. Each expedition adds to what we know and reveals, more clearly than the one before it, how much we have not yet found. The Midnight Zone has offered us a consistent message across every descent we have made into it. That what we thought we understood was insufficient. That the world is stranger and fuller and older than the map we carry. The creatures of the Midnight Zone were here long before we arrived. They will be here, in one form or another, long after we have finished whatever we are currently doing at the surface. The anglerfish does not require our understanding to continue. The dragonfish does not need us to appreciate the elegance of its invisible red beam. The siphonophore drifts through the dark, entirely indifferent to whether anything above knows it exists. We need the Midnight Zone, not for its minerals, not for what we can extract from it. We need it as a fact about the world we live in. We need to know that a place exists where the sun has never reached and life has claimed it anyway. Where the darkness we associate with emptiness and ending is full of patient and cold and ancient living things. Where the things we cannot see far outnumber the things we can. Where evolution, given enough time and enough darkness, makes its own light. We need to be reminded, as often as we can be, that the world is stranger and older and more densely alive than we have been led to believe. The anglerfish is still down there now. Its lure is pulsing in water that has not been warm for centuries. Something in the dark is moving toward it. Something that sees only the light and not what the light belongs to. Something that does not know what it is approaching. The deep keeps its secrets. It has always had more secrets than we can count. And tonight, lying in our own darkness, it is enough to know that something glows below us. In water we will never reach. In a world that has never needed us to know it. Patiently, without hurry, still waiting.